This is our first official interview right here at the Daybreak Star Radio Network. Dirty Harry, host of the Traffic Jam weekday afternoons 4 to 6, along with not only station manager, but my new interview co-host. And we're fortunate and lucky here to have the one and only T.J, the man behind the Dark Valley. Welcome to our radio station and our network.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm super honored to be your first kickoff interview. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Definitely are. We definitely are. We'll put MC Red Cloud and Superman and Lightful. We'll put them on the back burner right now. It's all about TJ.
Well, I don't know. I might need a spare radio station for my ego after you're through.
Hey, we might give you a radio show. You never know. So what was your inspiration behind this story film? Of course, referring to the Dark Valley.
Well, we'd wanted to make a film for a long time. I had a script that had won a bunch of awards, but it was a little more difficult to make. And I realized I was going to have to self-finance my first piece. So I always write short stories. And this story, The Dark Valley, is based on something that did happen to me. And I just kind of dramatized it a little bit and turned it into an everyman story. And I wrote with budget in mind, basically. So it was guerrilla filmmaking at its best.
Awesome. And you're going to laugh at me. And I kind of felt embarrassed to even ask Sherry the question, but you brought it to life to such a high degree that yesterday I asked Sherry, I said, that one scene where the older gentleman is, hunched over in his Mercedes in the parking lot, was that real? Because, you see flies and bugs, beaming off of his face. You see the color of his skin, change. You see the guy on the walkie-talkie saying, I think he's been deceased for 2 days. I mean, in a market like California, that's not unheard of to, potentially come across a scene like that, right?
Right. Sadly, it's not. And the homeless situation here, the unsheltered homeless is out of control. And people want to blame it on, bums and people not having any drive or, just giving up. But it's an economic situation and people are falling off the edge every day. And nobody's really understanding, I don't think, the root cause of it. They're just seeing the effect and voicing their disdain.
Mm-hmm. I thought you did a really great job of showing how it's, what's a good word for it? It's the life of and the expectations that most of society has about the homeless is some kind of tragedy porn. And you showed that really well. It's because there's a whole level of indifference that goes with it. And I think that you showed that quite well throughout your piece.
You're right. There's a delicate line to be walked there. And, that's what we all said at one point. We don't want it to become homeless porn. It's cause and effect. And that's what we're trying to show mostly is what's happening in society today, the dynamics and the lack of synergy that's bringing this about.
Yeah. I thought you showed it really well. And the film noir for it it brought it together with the Hollywood vibe of what's there and what's available and the street scenes and just the driving through different places. It was great. I think you captured that really well.
Well, especially being from Oklahoma, you've always heard the California propaganda, especially Hollywood and the LA area. And, there is a lot of sunshine and blue skies out here, but there's also a really, really dark, sinister tone and a lot of broken dreams out here and a lot of broken people. So, you have to reflect that into your reality as well. That's what we tried to do, is mix those two together to where it was socially relevant, talks about the current times we're living in with COVID and just the fact of the unknowns that we're dealing with. Should we start again? Should we quarantine again? Are the shots safe? Will we be protected? All these questions are out there. And then I think the contra questions by the other people who like to wear red hats, if you know what I mean, it muddies the water. So it's a very questioning time that we're living in, a very exciting time in a way that, when we come out of this, I think the possibilities are endless.
I agree. That's actually a very good segue to my next question, which, how do you think being from Indian country and growing up in Oklahoma, how do you think that has affected you as a filmmaker?
It gives you perspective in a lot of different ways. You have the culture shock of coming from a smaller town to a larger city. My parents moved around a lot from the time I was in high school. So, I was in Hawaii, Oklahoma, Texas, LA, and then later New York. So I've gotten to see, both coasts and a broad overview of people. And the one commonality I find is there's good people everywhere. You don't have to look very far. We're still a continuous country in that matter. And I think the majority of people are. And extremism pays both in the news and the press these days.
True. It's all about ratings.
Yeah.
TJ, in your line of work as a director and as someone that has the true experience on building out a flight plan like this that we want the nation and everyone to be able to see. How do you find a dream come true in your industry and within your jurisdiction?
My goal is to be creative and direct more, write, produce, direct. I've worked in a lot of different roles in film and television, live events, touring, festivals, but it's production work mostly is what I've done. So I know the nuts and bolts of everything and how it's all put together and how it functions as an engine. And now, I think at this point in my life, I actually have enough life experience to be able to tell a story, versus at 25 or 30 even. Just the places I've been, the people I've been around resonate within me, and I draw upon that obviously for the stories.
Right.
Yeah. Well, how did you meet Colon?
I met Colon through his dad, Wes Studi. Chris Eyre and I, my other writing partner, James Murray, and I adapted a book of short stories by Cherokee author Robert Conley, who actually wrote the history of the Cherokee Nation. It was called The Witch of Going Snake, and we still have that script. That's something we'd like to do. But it won Tribeca All Access. And Wes was working on, it was a series with Ian McShane. I don't remember. It didn't go. He played like an evil general, and Ian McShane was the king. But, I'd managed to get the script to him, and he grew up in Tahlequah. I grew up in Pryor. And it just kind of, he would always, so we met up in New York, long story short, when he was out there and got to be friends. And he'd always look at me and cock his head and he'd go, "You're from Pryor, man. What are you doing out here in New York City?" And I always thought it was a laugh. And we just kept up, a contact and friendship since then. And he and his wife, Mara, are good folks. And Colon was out here working, and I had this idea, and I sent it to Wes, and I said, "Hey, do you think Colon would be interested in this? This might, I want to lead like him." And he said, "Sure, show it to him." And, Colon loved the script. And most importantly, all the actors trusted me with the artistic part of the film. And that's what I have to compliment all of them on. They really rehearsed. You really believe everything they're doing is natural and normal. It's not one of those stiff indie performances. And my hat's off to all three actors, especially Colon Studi, for delivering that and trusting me with the actual piece and the edit to make it what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like shorts. I watch short festivals regularly, and and sometimes the acting is a little stilted because there's not a lot of time to get into character. There's just like, okay, we're here. We have the next 48 hours to shoot this thing. Let's go. And it's hard for everybody to get in role, and they just dropped in. It's just another day in the life. It was great.
Colon really workshopped it with these guys. He got it to where they were very natural and relaxed on camera. He and Isabel's chemistry it's normal, it's like, okay, that's a couple. And that's amazing acting. They really wrapped their heads around it. Like you said, it was a guerrilla film. So we shot it all in one day. And yeah. Wow. We shot it all on iPhone, a little $350 camera called the DJI Gimbal 5 that you buy at B&H. Me and my DP, Johnny, went in halvesies on it and got that. And then he had a DJI drone. So those were the three main camera elements we used. And we used a Dogma Manifesto style of filming, which means you use available light, not any artificial lighting. And it just made it easier to run and gun and get our day for us, basically, because you can count on sunshine in California.
Yeah. So what time did you start and when did you end?
I picked up the Mercedes-Benz. I scouted Ventura Boulevard for a body shop and found this cool old beat up Mercedes-Benz. So I talked the body shop guy into letting me get it. So I drove over there at 6 a.m, placed it in the parking lot, which is a city public parking lot. I figured we wouldn't get run off, and we paid for our parking spots. So, And I put it in place there. We put a prop tag on it and got the wheelchair and everything ready for it. And it looked natural because it had been setting out in this body shop yard and accumulating dust and grit, and the paint job was shot.
Yeah, that was great.
But I digress, right? It took us from about 8 a.m. till sundown. So it was April, so 6:30 to shoot. We took 45 minutes off for lunch. Everybody grabbed a cheeseburger and we just kept going. But I think the way it was shot was, the way we were able to shoot it by using handheld and more primitive things is how we got the day.
That's amazing. You got all that done in one day.
Well, I've done this for a while. I had a budget and schedule, and I know how to, and most importantly, get a meal break in, because a lot of people try to just blast through it and you're gassed by 3-4 o'clock.
Oh yeah, I've been on a number of sets where they're like, well, it's almost 10 p.m. Should we have lunch?
Yeah. I like yeah, I mean, it just comes from my experience in real world production work, to be able to pocket it in and schedule and know how much time per page you need per scene. It's just something that you learn by working.
Yeah. So tell us about Joe Estevez.
Joe Estevez is Martin Sheen's brother. He's Charlie Sheen's uncle. He's Emilio Estevez's uncle. And it's an interesting story. I met him almost 30 years ago on the set of the film Men at Work. I had moved from Oklahoma. My girlfriend had moved out to Redondo Beach, so I followed her out there. And they were shooting in our neighborhood. And it was my first experience to a film. And, I was checking it out and I saw where the catering truck was. So I managed to confidence game some shrimp out of them and, get a free lunch. And then there's Charlie Sheen sitting in my backyard with Emilio Estevez and Keith David and his uncle, Joe Estevez. Joe was working as a stand-in and a double for him. And he was a very nice man. We got to be friends then. And I wrote the voiceover for the film in my head. And we kept trying to figure it out once we had shot the film. Who is the voice? We all tried. We all laid it in there. It didn't click right. And then I thought, who are you channeling when you wrote this? And I thought back and I went, damn, it's Apocalypse Now. It's Martin Sheen. I can't afford him. Wait a minute. I know who Joe Estevez is. I hunted him down online. And I said, I don't have a lot of money, but I've got a really good piece. And he also, once he read it, believed in it. And we've been friends ever since. We talk, once or twice a week now.
Wow.
It's nice.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome.
Oh, the relationship didn't work out and I moved back to Tulsa.
Oh, really? That's not your wife now?
Redondo. Yeah. And we met shortly after that. That's when I came back.
Oh, that's great.
I won't hold it against you, but my favorite NBA team, referred as the Sonics, are in their market now. And they have been for a while. I used to love to go to Sonics games, and it was one of the saddest days of my life when Clay and his organization picked up that team and moved them out of there. So
yeah.
T.J, how would you describe the script in 2 words?
Film noir. That was my main influence.
What obstacles would you say that you had to face to finish the screenplay?
Well, it was the edit. We got all the coverage, and it was a really, I don't know, we cut it in color first, like the first draft. And we looked at it and went, it's not dark enough to match the words. So after a while, we decided to go black and white. It was not our intention. And I think with my experience with a lot of films, the written page becomes something different once you've shot it and go into edit. It almost makes itself sometimes. And that was the case in this. By adding the black and white and by using less, it made it edgier. You know what I mean? By making it a European style film almost, to where it was like a lot of foreign films I'm sure you've watched. Like, you may not be able to speak the language, but you understand what the film is by the storytelling. And that's what I tried to make this, is like, you didn't have to understand English to see what was going on. And the written stuff just kind of helps drive it along. So that was all just, by happy accident in edit, really. It wasn't really I'd like to say we planned it out that way, but that's just how it came out and how it worked best. I mean, by majority.
Well,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that made me think. So the narration was amazing, but you're right. It didn't necessarily need the narration. If you had, I mean, the music was great. Like, how did you find Wastelander? How did you find that piece?
I've done music supervision on film before. Got some good outlets, and my editor, J.D. Cohen, had these and pulled them, and it was perfect. It was a perfect fit. And, I'm friends with a bunch of musicians, and my other friend, Johnny Ritchie, did all that guitar work, that kind of Ennio Morricone, kind of heavy surf guitar, moody stuff, like Twin Peaks is what I tried to make it sound like.
Yeah, that was great too. It was really the music editing and placement was just perfect.
Well, a lot of that's, due to my editor, J.D. Cohen. He's a good guy and very talented. He's going to work on a bunch of stuff already.
What's the actor that played the amazing role inside the Mercedes in the parking lot? Like, what's he like? When he's not playing the part, when he's not an actor, what's the guy like in everyday life?
When he's not dead?
Is he?
When he's not dead, he's me. That was me. I played the dead body. People always said I had a face for radio, so I just went ahead and went with it.
I definitely do.
That is a mask that we found on Amazon that just looks like an old guy, and it's one of those Hollywood prosthetic masks. And then we took some Halloween like zombie makeup and put it on my arm and put it on the face of the mask that you saw, and then just went to Goodwill and found an old khaki work shirt. And I figured I was the most expendable at that point. Everybody else had to act. So I jumped in there. The flies are an after effect in edit, but I knew that's what we wanted. And, we tried to keep the continuity of that there. And I think that pays off. That's a shocking part of the movie, and the turn, where you start realizing who the character really is.
And someone trying to just get their first start at, purchasing a camera and, putting together a small little documentary film. Someone may be in high school that they have a dream to become a director or a producer. What would be your recommendation? What would be your words of wisdom for them in the future?
Use your iPhone, be a good storyteller. You can edit, there are several edit systems that are very simple and linear now. Learn how to do that yourself, or find a friend who really likes to do that and do that with them. And the sky's the limit. Use your I think the main thing is use your imagination, be a good storyteller, and be somewhat technically proficient where the picture is clear and the sound is audible. The audience will forgive the rest, as long as you're a good storyteller.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what festivals have you entered? Because I know you've won a number of things, like the Thriller Suspense Festival was Best Script Reading. What are some of the other ones?
We've won Hollywood Indies, Hollywood Just for Shorts, SoCal. I try to group things around where I live here in Southern California, just because it's easier. You don't have to pay for travel. I can get in my car and go to most of the places. But we've applied to Sundance, Slam Dance, South by Southwest, Austin Film Fest and Writers Conference, which we almost won in 2018 with the first short script I wanted to make, which was a film called June in California. And it won a bunch of screenplay competitions. We've always been strong with the writing. It's just assembling the production crew and then going for it, I think. And, frankly, COVID kind of helped do that, because everybody was still like going, what the heck are we going to do? I got a shot, but there's no work. So I kind of took advantage of that situation and pulled in the right people. And it clicked.
Good job. Do you have another one?
I think I'm good. I'd like to do some drops if we can get a couple of drops when we're done, please.
Sure.
So my last question then is, you are a member of the Cherokee Nation. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm an enrolled tribal member of the Cherokee Nation. Grew up in Pryor. We always played talc ball and basketball and wrestling, and went to school there at NSU, and floated the Illinois River. It was always close to home and a place that I was comfortable and familiar with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, teacher.
It's an honor.